Welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Jessica Lansbury with the Office of Alumni Engagement here at McMaster. This evening's webinar is part of our exploration series of events taking place during the month of November. For a complete list of events, please visit our Exploration microsite. We will put the link in the chat shortly. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Marianne Oketch. Marianne is a graduate of the Integrated Science program at McMaster, where she studied biochemistry. You may also recognize her from the CBS show Survivor, where she outwitted, outplayed, and outlasted 17 other contestants to become the sole survivor on season 42. She is the second Black woman and second Canadian to do so. After graduating from McMaster in 2020, Marianne attended Tyndale University in Toronto, where she obtained a master's degree of theological studies. Her love for Survivor started when she was still an undergraduate at McMaster in 2018 in Matthews Hall, searching for a show to help her procrastinate. If you have any questions for Marianne this evening, please type them in using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll have some time to answer a few at the end of her formal presentation. So joining us this evening to explore the strategies she used to succeed and how the skill set of Sole Survivor can be transferred into your everyday life, please welcome Marianne Oketch.
Hello, Jess. Thank you so much for such a kind invitation. And hello, all of you who are listening. Thank you for taking so much time out of your evening to go and listen to me. It really means a lot. So as you've heard from the introduction, my name is Marianne Oketch, and currently until December, I am the current reigning champion of Survivor. And Survivor, like you've heard, is something that's so important to me, and is something which I don't take lightly that I had the experience to have. So many people want to play Survivor, but so few people get to. So these stats which I'm about to do are based on just the American version of Survivor. So if any of you are big fans and watch international and wonder if my numbers are weird, this is why. So did you know that out of this season, 644 people have played the game of Survivor? There have been 103 people to make the final tribal. So that means having a chance to win, and only 40 different people have won. And so you might be going and thinking, oh, there must be some secret thing that she did to be a part of this elite few. There must have been something magical that she did in her life. And think maybe she has some special skills. Maybe she could read minds and that's why she won. But I want to tell you a little bit more about the things which I did to win and how it can actually apply to your life. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Perfect. So what I'm going to show you right now is my little collage. I call this the collage of my life. These are the things which I'd say contributed to how I won. So looking at the pictures, you can see the German flag because I was born in Germany. A picture of my family. I was the middle child. I had classic middle child syndrome. I always felt as if I was the least loved, least everything. One thing as well too, born in Germany. I moved to Canada when I was in 2001. You can see a map and a red line. That's the 401. So I highlighted the 401 because I've always been living in Canada along the 401. We started in London, then we moved to Toronto, then we moved to Ajax, Ontario, then we moved to Kingston, Ontario, then we moved back to Ajax, Ontario, with a little bit of a stint for me where I went to Hamilton, Ontario, because that's where I graduated from. I also have my graduate university at Tyndale University, and I've had so many different jobs. One of the coolest jobs that I've had is Walmart, and that's really prepared me. And a cool thing as well for me, I love to travel and I love having experiences. So when you look at this list, you might be like, you know what? These are things which I could do too. Like I have siblings. Maybe you were also a first generation immigrant like me. And you might be wondering, what is that key item that helped you win Survivor? And I want to tell you, that's the magic of it. My regular life experiences are what helped me prepare for Survivor and win the game. And because we all have these life experiences, so many of us, we've all had a job. I know that all of us have been born because, you're sitting down listening to this webinar. And so many of us maybe have jobs, maybe graduated, and have all these life experiences that can go and help you succeed. But it's about how we utilize these life experiences to succeed. And I'm going to go, and in this time that I have with you, I want to explain to you and give you some experiences about how my life experience helped me in Survivor and how I can put them in Survivor points to then put them into Game of Life points. And I've narrowed it down to 5 different things. The first thing, number 1, set yourself up for success. So as you saw in my beautiful collage, as you can see, collages are not my skill, but I had so many mundane events, so to speak, that helped me on my time for Survivor. But usually when you ask someone, you know what, Marianne, how did you prepare for Survivor? No one wants to sit down and hear, you know what, I prepared for Survivor with my life experiences. People want tangible experiences and examples that they can go and draw from. So, no matter how true it is that my life did help me prepare for Survivor, I do want to say that I did more than just that. So, a really cool thing, when I got the call to be on Survivor, I found out on March 1st, 2021 at 11 a.m. And I was told that I'd be flying out to start the game April 22nd. So that would give me 52 days to prepare for the show. And in those 52 days that I had, I did prepare. I started going to physio because I had a sports injury. And I'm like, you know what? Let me really take care of the sports injury. I made sure to go get time off of work so I could actually play. And I even started to think about what my goals were when I was on the show. I made a Survivor bucket list, so I'd always remember that when I was playing. I started to not sleep in my bed. I started to sleep like in my closet or on the floor or in the bathroom to get ready to feeling how uncomfortable you'd be when you're in the game. I worked on strengthening my core. I used to plank for 5 minutes every day, and I really got a really strong core. Worked on word unscrambling. I looked at puzzles. I began to focus on my diet or lack thereof. So I started to do 24-hour fast to feel how it would feel to be hungry. I started to get used to not cold water. I take cold showers. And I'd also, as you can see, I have my water bottle here. And I love filling my water bottle to the brim with ice. I stopped doing that so I'd be used to it because I'd assumed that there was no iced water in Survivor. And so in these 52 days, I found it so useful for me to prepare because it helped solidify habits, which I could then pull from when I was in the game. But 52 days, that's just under a month, and that's just under 2 months, and that's not a lot. But I didn't just start preparing for Survivor when I got the call that I was going to be on the show. I actually started preparing from the time that I had my last interview with the casting, and then that's when I started to fully really prepare. So the last day I had an interview with casting was October 30th, 2020. And then so from October 30th, 2020 to April 22nd, 2021, that is 174 days. That is over 3 times the amount of time that I would have had if I only started preparing when I knew for certain I was on the show. So in these 174 days, what did I begin to do? I began to work out. I was someone where I was a big couch potato. And so I went from not working out at all to working out 3 to 4 times a week to really just focus on my physical health. I actually began therapy because I knew that I had some things to work on. And I'm like, I want to set myself up for success in my mental health and in my emotional health and the way that I interact with other people. So I also went and focused on therapy to really try to focus on my social interactions. I read an excessive number of books. We're talking about self-help books. We're talking about books about the art of negotiation, about securing a deal. I really wanted to just read all the information I could about Survivor. I scoured the internet, searching about what past players did, seeing if all their interviews that they did, seeing regrets that they did, to see maybe if how they'd feel if they were blindsided, how they'd feel if they thought their move wouldn't work, how they were finding idols. And the biggest thing which I did as well too is that I taught myself how to make fire with flint. And I made a whole makeshift fire making station because in fire, sometimes you have to go and make fire if you want to make it ahead. And I made sure to go make the fire making station and made sure that I could make a fire in under 4 minutes that would go and help me if I ever needed that. Because I had that extra 174 days, I was able to go and have a more holistic way of going and being prepared. Like I previously said, with the 52 days that I had, I started to do 24-hour fasts so I'd know how it feels to be hungry. But because of the time that I had with therapy and the extra time, not only did I know how hunger felt, I was also aware of my emotions when I was hungry. And one thing that I learned is that I am a very, very hangry person. But now I could go and compensate for that because I knew how I felt because I had that extra time. And even the extra time that I had also started building habits, which I use to this day. Like I said, I was someone who I did not like working out at all. But then because of Survivor, I'm like, you know what? I really have to work out. So I now actually am a big fan of high intensity interval trainings. And you can still find me at the gym. And if you told me that 3 years ago, you'd find me at the gym happily, I would have just laughed at your face. So what I'm trying to say is that when I was navigating life, like I was ready on Survivor, when that opportunity actually came, when the call actually came, I was even more prepared than I was going to be. And in life, there's going to be times when you have an opportunity, or maybe you want to begin a journey to reach a goal. And it can be very, very easy to push off the tangible changes that you need to make when the goal is less abstract and more concrete. But one thing that I want to encourage is that even before your goal becomes more concrete, even if it seems far away, start making those small changes that can help you be prepared so that when that opportunity arises, you're setting yourself up for success. So I'm not saying that, like, if you're aiming for a promotion, barge into your superior's office and be like, this is my office now. Or if you're trying to build your savings to take your next paycheck and be like, you know what, let me not pay my bills. I'm going to put this all in the S&P 500. What I'm saying is that you can start making those minor changes and minor shifts in your life so that when you have that big opportunity, that big shot, you'll be really prepared. So that is my first point, which is to set yourself up for success. My second point, which I have as well, is know who you are. So one of the reasons that I went on Survivor is not only because I love the show and I wanted to experience the show, but I also want to show that you could go and play the game of Survivor while being your authentic self. So my point of being weird and being your authentic self and being able to play was actually something that showed up. So I actually have a video, which I will show.
Because I've always struggled with like self-esteem issues because I was a pretty weird kid growing up. Like I remember like just dreading going on the bus because people would always pick on me, but I can be me on this show. And like Survivor is a way where not only I can go and test my own limits, but I can show to people as well. It's like, hey, like look at you, you're someone who's weird, who didn't have to change themselves to succeed. And like maybe there's someone who's watching this that needs that. And I want to be like, hey, I'm here, I'm weird. You can be weird too, and you can win, and you can succeed, and you don't have to change anything about yourself. The title of...
So that was basically my point on the show. I wanted to show people that you could be weird and that you could succeed when you're being weird. And that was on the show. But the great thing about where the point is, know who you are, is I knew this before I went on the show. I knew that my passion was always to go and let people be their authentic self, encourage people to be their authentic self. And so part of getting on the show is that you have to go and make an audition tape. So I actually want to show you my audition tape that I made. And this is not edited. This is totally real. This is my audition tape. And this is what I said at the end about why I want to be on the show.
I want to be on the shows. I want to be for role models for people like me. I'm someone who I'm super nerdy and weird, and from 4th grade to 11th grade I was bullied because of my personality. I want to show to people that you don't need to change yourself to be successful. I had nights where I'd think, should I change myself so people would like me? And I always said no, but that was difficult because I didn't see people like me on screen. Survivor, put me on your show, I'm gonna kill it. You've been to Kenya, but you've never had a Kenyan on Survivor. Let me be the first, and I'm gonna win this thing. I'll hear from y'all soon.
So as you can see, something, my personality and me being weird, me being quirky, that's not something that was new to me. That was something that I was aware of, because when I went on the show, I knew who I was. I knew what my strengths were. I knew what my weaknesses were. And then even because I prepared even more before I went on the show, I knew how I reacted in times of stress. I knew how I reacted when I had little food, when I had little sleep. And because I knew who I was, it helped me with knowing how I would play the game. So what happens is, to win the game, you have to make it to Final Tribal. And at Final Tribal, the jury goes and asks you questions and gauges your responses to see if you're worthy for the title of Sole Survivor and the $1 million that goes with it. To be able to obtain their vote for the $1 million, you need to be able to answer their questions in a way that they're happy to give you that money. Because I knew myself, and because I had very high self-worth, and I also knew how I played the game, I knew what my game was. I knew the reason why I made every move. I knew the reason sometimes when I faltered, or I knew the reasons about maybe when people thought I was strong and I wasn't, and vice versa. So this meant that I knew going into Final Tribal that I truly believed that I deserved to win, and I knew why I deserved to win. So when the juries were asking me questions about my game, I knew when they would ask me something, I'd be like, what you think is right, and this is why it's right. But also when the jury made assumptions about my game, which weren't as true as I believed they were, I could be like, no, this actually isn't true, and here's the reason why. I was able to do this because I knew who I was. And so now you can use this in life as well too, because if you know who you are, you'll be able to know your strengths, you'll be able to know your weaknesses, and be able to grow from that situation. So if you know yourself, that's point number one. But the second thing you need to do is you need to be able to stay true to yourself. Because if you know yourself and you don't use what you know about it, then what's really the point? So there might be a time when you're going, you know yourself and you know what your values are, you know what your strengths are, and you might go and sometimes feel the struggle to go and maybe not go stay true to yourself. Maybe you want to be something different. Maybe there's a situation which you're not comfortable with and you want to go and stay away from that. That's something that's really happened to me. But I've noticed that when I compare the times to when I've stayed true to myself and I compare the times when I didn't stay true to myself, the situation is always a little bit better when I actually stayed true to myself. And there's a very good example for this in my life. So, like I said, I used to work at Walmart, and I always say that Walmart, once you enter it, it's a different dimension, but I met so many cool people and have so many cool different stories from working at Walmart. So there was one time when I was at work and I had a conversation with my manager and a coworker. And there was one time the manager actually said something which made me and the coworker uncomfortable. And because they said something that actually contributed to anti-Black racism. We were talking, just joking around, and she said something around the lines of, oh, I'm not saying that Black people don't steal, but mostly like I'm seeing Black people steal. So what's that say? I remember me being a Black woman being super uncomfortable, but I had so many questions at that moment. I was thinking, this is so uncomfortable. Like, am I supposed to like point her out, saying that makes me uncomfortable, saying the reasons that that's wrong? But if I say that in the moment, what happens if I use my words wrong? What happens if I say something that's incorrect? Or what if this isn't the right time? Because this isn't even where the conversation was going. And I had all these questions. And in that fear that I had, I actually walked away from the situation. And I remember coming home that day and just feeling immense regret about that situation and wishing that I did something different. And so I chatted with my therapist about it. But after talking to my therapist about the situation, I realized that I could still do something. So the next time I had a shift, I actually reached out to a manager that I trusted and told them about what I observed and told them about how it made me uncomfortable and about the situation. And after that, I felt a weight lifted on my shoulder. This actually happened 8 weeks before Survivor. And 8 weeks ago, later, I was on an island. I was in Fiji. And so, like I said, a thing which I'm very passionate about is equity and Black and anti-Black racism and making sure and trying to stop that. And there was a time in the island when what happened was every Black person was being voted out, just one in a row. And there was a time I was in tribal and there was another chance of someone being voted out. And I remember feeling fear in that situation again. What if I say something wrong? Millions of people are going to watch this. Millions of people, what if I say something and I'm not eloquent? What if someone has better words than me? What if people judge me for this situation? And so what I did in that situation was I stayed true to myself, and this is what I did after.
Like Jeff, coming to this game, my biggest fear wasn't going and like using an advantage or idle correctly. My biggest fear was that I would see some sort of injustice and I would sit down and do nothing. And like, I'm not saying that it's an injustice for Chanel and Roxroy to be voted out because like, I don't know the full story, but if I let that pattern continue, that's an injustice for me and my experience as a Black woman. And especially coming on like Survivor, where it's like, you know, millions of people will be watching, it feels like I have to do it because who else will? It's like so frustrating how I have to then incorporate that to the way that I play the game. Even talking to Omer previously, there's never been a Muslim person who has made the merge. And that changes his gameplay. Maybe for the better, maybe for the worse, but that changes it. And some people don't have to experience that burden when they go and they enter the game. Yes, we all technically have a 1 in 18 shot for the million, but because we all come with our burdens and we all come with our privileges, that 1 in 18 might be bigger or smaller for some people, and that sucks.
Wow, that was amazing.
So there we go. Perfect. Let's continue. So when I watch this back, I didn't say everything perfectly. I didn't say some things I maybe stuttered about, some things maybe I could have said more eloquently. But in that moment, I realized that I had a situation where I could stand my ground because this is who I was. This is the passion that I had. And I wanted to go and stand my ground. And I said, and I have no regrets about that situation. And because I went and stood my ground and stayed true to myself, this is one of the moments where so many people have reached out to me about this, saying that it started conversations with family, started conversations with their friends about racism. And that's something where if I let my fear control me and stopped at being who I was in that moment, that wouldn't have happened. So because I stayed true to myself, I was able to go and even start that conversation, regardless of how I ended in Survivor. That's something that really means a lot to me. And so there's parts about you, everyone who's on here, you all have passions. Maybe you have passions for social justice issues. Maybe you have passions that you think people would think are weird. But if you stay true to yourself, and continue with that passion, continue with what you love, and then when you move forward and that situation arises, to share your passion with others, regardless of how eloquent you are, staying true to yourself will always give the best result. So this comes to my third point about how you can go and succeed in Survivor and life. And that point is be willing to take a step back. In Survivor, there's always this underlying belief that to be the best, you need to have controlled the game from start to finish. If you go and you search up winner ranking, Survivor, you're always going to see people at the top, and they're always the same people, and the reasons are always similar. This person controlled the game from beginning to end. This person had all the biggest moves. So there becomes this dichotomy where if you're going and you make bigger moves, that means that then you're a better player. But going into the game, that's something that I didn't agree with, and it can also be seen in my game. So a lot of people ask what the scariest time in the game was for me, and I can pinpoint that to you. And so the scariest time for me was in the final 12. So what happens is we're all about to vote. This is right before the merge. This is right before the jury. So it's a very pivotal moment, and we all want to make it to the next round. And so I felt pretty good about my position. I felt pretty good about where I was. But then I found out from my number one ally that I was currently the target that everybody wanted to go home in that round. And I just remember being so crushed in that moment. I thought that no one wanted to play the game with me. I thought all the connections that I had were all useless, and that I thought I was playing a good game, but clearly I wasn't. And in this conversation, Omar told me specifically, well, in paraphrasing, Marianne, there's people who are trying to get you out, but I have an in with the people who are making decisions. So I just need you to sit back. I need you to not go do anything. And I need you to go and let me do the work to save you. In this time in the game, I actually had a hidden immunity idol. So what an idol does is if you play it, you're basically safe at tribal. And I knew that if I played my immunity idol, I would be safe for that one round. But I also knew that if I played the idol, I'd have less power moving forward, and people might go and distrust me or not want to work with me even more. So for me, in that moment, I had to decide if I wanted to trust Omar and what he was saying that he was able to do, or I had to decide if I wanted to take matters into my own hands and move forward. And in that moment, I was so worried, but I had an answer, and I have a video because I like audio visual. Oh, here, this should be a better screen share. Perfect.
Why me? Like, I don't want to go out before the merge. I've worked so hard to be here, and
oh, sorry.
I'm so terrified. All I want to do is cry and scream, but like, I know that in this game, I have to go and I have to center myself and I have to stay calm. I feel as if me playing my idol right now, it all comes down to Omar.
So for me, I decided I'm going to go and I'm going to trust Omar in this situation, and then I'm going to let him do whatever he wanted to do. And so I went, I did exactly what Omar told me to do. I sat down, I basically gave all my agency to him. When at camp, I didn't talk to anyone, I didn't strategize at anyone. I just tended the fire that whole afternoon. And so for people who play Survivor, you might be thinking, Marianne, what were you thinking? You have to go and try to save yourself. But I knew that Omar, who was my ally, said to trust him, and I decided to go and trust him. And that was so hard for me, especially as a big fan of Survivor, seeing people pass by, seeing people going and walking and talking to each other, knowing that they were playing the game, knowing that they were strategizing was something that I wanted to do. But according to my ally, who knew more than me in that situation, he said that it wasn't best for my game, so I had to do what wasn't best for my game. And I even knew going into Tribal that I was going to be getting votes. I didn't know how many votes I was going to get, but I knew I was getting votes. And that was terrifying, especially because I knew I had a way that I could save myself, but I wasn't going to use that way. And then when the votes were read at that Tribal, every single time I heard my name, I remember that my gut was dropping. I remember being worried, being like, is this like, did I mess up? Like, is this how I'm going home? And I just had so much fear. But the thing is, Omer's plan did work, and I was able to move forward in the game, still with my idol in place. And so there's times in life when you might go and you might have to relinquish control, either out of things in your control, which are in your control, or things which are out of your control. And relinquishing control is scary. It's just a scary thing, regardless of what the task is, especially when you know that there is a way that you can complete the task and you know that you'll be able to do it. But in some of those times, sometimes you can go and you complete the task by yourself. You can go and hold on to ownership and everything's fine and dandy. But there might be other situations where if you don't release that control, you could be hurting yourself in the long run. In my situation, for me, if I played the idol to be safe that tribal, yes, I'd be safe for the next tribal. I'd make it to the merge. I'd make it to the jury. But there's a very high chance that I'd be seen as a target earlier in the game than I wanted. And then if you're seen as a target, then people might want to have gone and voted me out, which isn't a good thing that you want people to do. You kind of want to stay in the game. But because I released my control and I allowed Omer to go and make the move for me, I was able to go and slip under the radar. And that gave me the opportunity to form new bonds that could help me further propel myself in the game. By allowing myself to relinquish my agency, I was actually able to go and give myself more control later on. And like I said, in life, there might be times that you have to give up your control. Maybe it's your choice that you give up control. Maybe it's not your choice that you give up control. But in those situations, it's so important to know that the moment that you lose control, it's not the be all that end all. There's still other moments where you can have control. And it's about more how you move forward after you hit that adversity. Do you pick yourself back up or do you still stay on the ground? And I remember in the beginning that when tribal ended and I was trying to go and join the cool kids table, I felt as if I was shunned and I was pretty much beaten and broken down after that tribal. But I did not stop from trying to play the game. I still tried to talk to people after that tribal. I still tried to strategize with people after that tribal. I still tried to go and chat back and forth. And I tried to use every single weapon in my arsenal. And so I decided to even go and do a Hail Mary to make sure that I would go and give my best shot. And I have a video of that Hail Mary. And as I load up the video, one thing that people know about me, my friends, is that I'm a very emotional person. I cry very easily. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. I cry when I'm angry. And so going into the game, I decided, you know what? I'm going to be willing to use my emotions as a weapon. And then in this moment, I'm like, the only thing I have are my emotions. So let me go try using them and see if that does anything. So I actually have a moment. Boom. When I use my emotions as a Hail Mary for strategy.
Like, I want to compete. Like, I want to compete. But the thing is, like, we all need food. And it's like, I know that there's some people here who know that they're in a better position than me. So, like, it would mean so much if you know that you're in that better position to go and, like, sacrifice. Because it's like, I could be going home because of this decision. But to know that I'm giving a chance for you guys to move forward, like, please, just like in your heart, just do it, please. Like, I'm begging you. I decided to go and sit out. And you know, I'm an emotional person and I'm tearing up, I'm getting sad, and I'm really trying to ramp it up, making people feel bad about trying to vote me out. People say you can't play this game with emotion, but look at me, using emotions as a weapon.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory with that. So the Hail Mary worked and I was safe that round, but it actually worked even better than a lot of people saw. So what happened after I said that Hail Mary with my tears and crying is that everyone agreed that the people who were safe and the people who sat out in that challenge, they wouldn't be voted off. So I was safe now for another round. But what happened was one of the people who were big in strategy at the moment actually came after that challenge to reach out an olive branch and say, Marianne, I want to work with you. So I had an in, because even when I was at my lowest, I was still trying to fight for my place. And I still saw that opportunity and I used that opportunity to the best of my ability. So in Survivor, my strategy always wasn't perfect. My experience, I didn't have that perfect game. I didn't always have control. I wasn't always at the top of the majority. But the big focus is what I did in those moments of imperfection and how I let those moments of imperfection allow me to move forward. And this is something that people experience all their life. And it's just about the focus of moving forward after the failures. So as you know, I recently graduated from my master's degree at Tyndale University. And I remember questioning what I was going to do with my life with that degree. So I was currently working at my church at that moment. But before the year, I previously applied to medical school, but that possibility shattered in January when I didn't secure any interviews, which, it's fine. But I remember thinking maybe I'd stay at my job at my church, which I currently had. And I did enjoy the job, but I didn't really see myself doing it for a long period of time. And so I was wrestling over the fact, being like, what's next? Well, I have this thing which I kind of don't like, but there's really nothing set up for me. But I remember sitting down in June being like, you know what? I think it's time for me to move on from my job. So I actually resigned from my position at the church and I began searching for a new job. So at this point, I resigned without having something new. And with every single application that I had, I was faced with rejection after rejection, but didn't even make the interview stages for all the jobs that I was applying to. And I just remember questioning if I was even good enough to get a job because I didn't even make it forward. I was thinking maybe there's something wrong with my resume. Am I having a gap or a red flag, which I'm not seeing? And I decided, you know what, I'm still going to move forward. And I'm still very not going to regret that I resigned from my job because I knew that was best for me at that point. But I was still nervous about the uncertainty that was in my life because I like knowing what's next. I like having those goals. So during this time, I was still doing post-show interviews for Survivor. I was still talking about my experience. And one of the interviews that I had was actually with TVO, specifically with TVO Kids. So because it's super close and being raised in Ontario, TVO Kids is like my childhood. I'm like, yeah, I'll go into studio for an interview. So they went and they interviewed me in person and I had that interview and they actually liked me so much. They asked me to interview for a role as a host at their new channel. And so I interviewed and I actually got the position that I didn't even think was ever in my life plan. I didn't even think about me to look about applying for TVO Kids, but it's something that, I've always wanted to do. And so because of the failures that I previously had, because I wasn't able to go get into med school, or I didn't even go get my job that I was applying for, it allowed me to accept this opportunity that came and made it to the interview stage as well too. So of course, I'm not trying to go and mitigate any failures that we have in life. It's so hard to go have a failure, be like, you know what, I failed. Let's continue living life. It's not that easy to just smile and take it. Like I can tell you, when I got 2 emails in the span of an hour saying, dear applicant, we've had so many different applications at this time. I can tell you, I was so sad. I actually left work early just to cry. I had to meet with a friend and I was the saddest that I've been. And I think in the year of 2022, that's the saddest that I've been all year. But it's about what you do after you have that failure, how you pick yourself up, how you move forward, how do you see yourself, see the vision about yourself. That's the biggest response about what you do to move forward. And now, the last point which I have for how you can have strategies in Survivor and move forward in life is to be flexible. And I don't mean mobility, even though having a good mobility is very great for you in life, but I just mean be flexible in what life brings you. So the thing is about me, I am a big Survivor super fan. And so, but I think that flexibility is what contributed to my win. So being a big super fan, I made notes upon notes about the best strategies. I looked at the past seasons. I made dossiers. I researched everything to see what the best way moving forward would be. And I created the strategy called the 3-2-1 strategy. So it's the makeup of the final 6. So in the final 6, you'd want to have 3 threats, including yourself. You want to have 2 people who you can beat, also known as GOATs. And you want to have 1 number 1 ally. I also thought that the most pivotal votes in the game were the final 8 and the final 7. So for most of the game, I worked with that framework. So I knew that whoever was voted out, it didn't really matter as long as the final 8 and final 7 were the people who I wanted to go home. And that was something that I was able to do. So even thinking about the final 8, I really started thinking, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to make sure that I can get my 3-2-1 strategy? So as the final 8 and the final 7, I had the final 6 and I thought that was the best makeup. I had the strategy, but then I realized that according to my final 6, I'd have to go for the big targets. But in that moment in the game, my biggest hurdle in winning was actually my number 1 ally. And I would have to go and work with people who were in a different capacity. So I actually have a thought about that in my confessional, right?
At Tribal Council, what the jury saw was Omer just go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. This was someone who was sitting in the background and boom, he's the reason why Drea was gone. And I'm like, there's no way that I can beat him. So I'm thinking, being like, okay, There always comes a time in this game when you have people that you trust, but the people that you trust, if you know they can beat you, you have to do something.
Yeah. So if I came with my framework and decided that the framework which I came in, which was heavily researched, was the way to go, I probably would have kept Omar another round and maybe reevaluated at the final 5. But I knew that I had to be flexible if I wanted to win the game of Survivor. So my flexibility went, and I actually changed the game, and I managed to vote Omar out in that round. And that was actually one of the reasons that I won. And that's something that is so important in life as well. Being able to reevaluate the goals that you have in life, in checkpointing, not just thinking of one goal and then after sticking to that goal. Of course, that's important, but making sure that the goal that you have is still the goal that you should have. Like I said, in life right now, I still don't exactly know what the future has in store for me. I'm right now in a job that I love, and I know that I'm passionate about sharing my story and inspiring others. And I also love learning. But if you ask me where I saw myself in 5 years, I tell you that I still don't really have a clue, and I'm still figuring that out. I have so many things that I could do. Maybe I'll continue working with TVO. Maybe I'll go back to school and learn some more because I love learning. Maybe I'll get married and become a housewife so I never have to work a day in my life again. Or maybe I'm going to do something that I don't even know exists just yet. But the biggest asset that I have, even though I don't know that 5-year plan, is that I reassess my goals every single day, and checking in to make, and I give myself the peace and allow myself for my goals to shift. As I mentioned previously, I applied for medical school last year. But one of the biggest decisions that I made this summer was choosing not to apply again. And I remember just being so worried, thinking maybe people will think that I'm going and just giving up on my dream. Maybe people will be thinking, oh, she doesn't have what it takes. But I realized at that point when I decided not to apply that the reasons that I wanted to apply and I wanted to become a doctor didn't apply to me anymore in that situation. Of course, I still have a passion for healthcare. I still have a passion for health communication, and I still want to use those skills in my life from day to day, which is even why I'm thinking about going back to school. Well, was one of the things, but I gave myself the freedom to reevaluate my life, to reevaluate my goals. And then I decided in where I am right now that I wanted to shift my goals and what I'm at. And that ability to shift, that ability to pivot, that ability to go and reevaluate to make sure that what you decided 1 year ago is still what you need right now is the biggest thing that you can apply to your life. Because in life, there's going to be so many opportunities that come at you. There's going to be so many experiences that you're able to experience. And sometimes those experiences might not match with the initial goal that you've made in your life. So sometimes at those times, you might reevaluate and you might realize, no, I shouldn't readjust my goal. I should still move forward. And that's fine. But there might be other times when you're going, there's a different experience, and you realize after reevaluating your life and being flexible that you actually should shift to that goal. You should shift to that target and move forward, and it'll be the best for you in that situation. And that's so cool because I think that being flexible will provide you with the maximum success in life because life still comes at you. There's so many things we haven't discovered, so many things that are yet to discover. And if that situation arises, if a situation that you didn't even know existed arises, it's up to you to make sure that you are going and flexible to go and give yourself this chance to have that experience. So I'm going to go wrap up again the 5 things that I said. You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Prepare in everything. If you know that you have a goal, start preparing like you have that goal. So when that opportunity arises, you'll be ready. Know who you are, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know what makes you tick. So you'll be able to go and be successful and know what your strengths and weaknesses are and how you might go and experience different situations. And when you know who yourself is, make sure you stay true to yourself. You know who you are, and that's how you're made. And so there might be some things that you want to change about yourself, and that's fine. But for the big values that you have, stay true to yourself. In situations where you might have to fight with your values, your not values, stay true because that's the one which at the end of the day, you'll be able to go and feel proud about yourself. Be willing to take a step back. We're not always going to be the main character in the stories in life, and that's okay. Being able to take a step back, being able to go and ask for help when you need it, and being able to go and if someone is more experienced and giving them that time can let you go reevaluate, set back, and be ready to go when you continue in life. And last but not least, like I said, be flexible. Life is so unpredictable, and we're not sitting down knowing all the futures like Doctor Strange. We are able to do that, but being able to be flexible and what life, whatever comes in our way, allows us to go and evaluate to see what's best for us and what's not. And with those 5 strategies, which I used to win in Survivor, you too can win the game of life. Thank you so much. Oh, that is the wrong slide. Thank you so much. Take 2.
Thank you, Marianne. That was wonderful. You were very passionate and inspiring, and I loved it. There's lots of good tips and lessons to think about, not only to work towards success, but lots of transferable skills and thoughts to use in any facet of life. So love it. I especially love the know yourself and stay true to yourself. Those were very, very inspiring words. So thank you. As Marianne said, we've got a couple minutes for questions here. So if you have a question for Marianne, you can type it in using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll have some time to get to them. We do have lots of questions, so we'll get to as many as we can in the time allotted. So my first question, or the first question that's come up, is, as the winner of Survivor, was there a specific life experience that prepared you, and what was your predominant strength? So you covered a few of them, but
yes. So I think, saying again, that honestly, the specific life experience which I had is more like just enjoying the life of really truly accepting who I was, accepting maybe I'm a weird person and that's okay, but I want to go and play the game to be true and authentic to myself. Because when you go on to Survivor, if you start to go and start to juggle different lies, it's going to be so hard to just keep that story there. But if you're your true and authentic self, it gives you enough brain power to actually go and play the game that you want to play. So I'd say that honestly, just accepting myself was the biggest experience and the biggest thing which I attribute to my win.
Yeah, that's great. Someone is asking, did you have any physical health issues after returning from Survivor?
I surprisingly did not have actually that many physical issues. Like, I'm trying to think about it. No, like no dietary issues, no physical issues. I came back pretty okay. So maybe that says something with the game now being 26 days, but yeah, really nothing. I was one of the lucky ones.
That's great. Just reading through these here. What role, if any, did spirituality or religion play in your decision-making to win as Survivor?
So I wouldn't say that spirituality went and played with my win, but I think it helped me give peace in whatever the situation was. So like the person said, I'm a very spiritual person, and every day in the morning I would pray. Every time before a challenge I would pray, and every time before tribal I would pray. But my prayer would be like, I would always be so thankful for this experience, and I'd always be like, whatever happens, I just pray that you'll give me, like, God will give me the peace and acceptance that whatever happens, that's what's supposed to happen. And then sometimes I'd be like, you know what, I'd love my plan to happen, and I'm really going to be excited if we both are on the same page, but whatever happens, just please give me peace in that situation.
Yeah, that kind of ties into someone else's question that I'm reading right now. They say, hi, Marianne, my family and I are big fans, wondering how you balance strategy with your personal morals and connections with other players in the game. You were so genuine the entire time, even when you made the big strategic moves.
Yeah, I think the thing about that is that the people that they're casting for Survivor now are different than the earlier seasons. The people who are cast, we're all really big fans of Survivor. So we all understand that it's a game first and foremost. So when people are being voted out, it hurts, of course, but it's a game. But the thing which I think is the biggest thing is the way that you treat people, right? So if you're voting someone out, are you being rude, being like, that's your time, stuff that torch? Or are you still treating them with the kindness and the respect that they deserve? So I think that's something, the way that my faith came in, where it's like, I would always treat people with kindness. I would always treat people the way that I wanted to treat people. I'd always treat people with respect, even if I had to vote them out, even if I had to lie to them to blindside, I wouldn't then go and try to isolate them or bully them to try to go and like hurt them in that way.
Yeah, that's great. Changing gears a little here. So someone's asking, you never see the film crew, but they capture so much, probably a lot that we don't even see or doesn't make it to the final cut. So someone's asking, how many film crew are actually there with you, and do they ever speak to you, or is that even something you can divulge?
So can't talk about that fully. CBS has me on a massive NDA, but what I can say is that by day 3, you don't even notice the cameras are there. Like, so you notice it at first because, you're not used, no one's just being filmed 24/7, but by day 3, you're like, yeah, they're there. And they're not allowed to speak to you. They're not allowed to drink in front of you. They're not allowed to eat in front of you. And they're not, so like, you can talk to them, but it's not really worth your time. Like, you should be strategizing instead or making bonds.
Yes. A question that's come up a couple times, and a lot of people are curious, where and how do contestants go to the washroom?
Oh, this is a great one. So my tribe was actually known as the tribe to talk the most about bodily functions in the history of Survivor. I have that pride and joy of saying that. But so when you go to do number one, so basically you just go off the side of the path and you just do it whatever you go in the ocean. But number two, there are two teams. So there's team land. So what you do, you all agree on a point in the land, you dig a hole with your hand, you poop in that hole and you cover it. Or there's number two, which is team aqua dump. So you go off to the ocean, you then go to you go strip your clothes off, you go into the water waist deep, you pop a squat, and then you go in the water, let the ocean blow it away, then you come in. My whole tribe, we were all team aqua dump. But the thing is, there's a massive war with team aqua dump and team landers. The landers think aqua dump's nasty, the aqua dumpers think landers are nasty. It's actually a whole big thing.
Yeah, I guess it is. And something you wouldn't think about necessarily watching the show, but it does make sense to think about. What was it like watching the season back?
It was very interesting watching the season back because when you play Survivor, you are one person and you have your own perspective. When you go in after the show's done filming, of course you talk to your other contestants and you see what happened, but it's still in your perspective. So when the game starts and you get to hear about other people's perspectives, get to hear what they're saying, see what they're saying, it's like it comes from, instead of being one perspective, but now you're having 18 different perspectives. So it's super cool, especially as a fan, because you were behind the scenes and watching it, but it's also, I think it would just even gave me a more holistic part of the story, because I was very at peace when I watched the game and I got to see different parts. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that happened. That's so fun.
I see a lot of questions here about your application. So you showed us a segment during your presentation. Was that it, or was there a longer process to it? And I guess the second part, someone's asking, what factors, you had mentioned being authentic, but what factors made you successful in the application process?
Of course. So the application, it's not just a tape. Like I said, can't speak a lot about it. So you submit a tape, then you do a lot of interviews, then you do a lot of psychological evaluations, then you meet with a lot of people, then you do medical tests and physical tests to make sure that you're ready to play. And then that whole process I think takes at least 6 weeks, then it spatters around. So I was in casting for around 6 or so months doing stuff for them. But what I think made me most successful for my time in my application process is truly, you always hear, just be yourself. And that's honestly the biggest thing, where, casting, they know how to sniff out a lie. They know if you're being true to yourself, they know that you're not. So you don't have to have some big sob story. A lot of people think that you need a sob story to get on the show, but honestly, you just need to know yourself and know why you want to play the game and have that passion to play. And if you're able to go and articulate that well and be able to know that if they want me for me, I don't have to be someone else, they want me, it just really contributes to the success.
What was the most challenging situation you faced within the game, and how did you overcome it?
So for me, I think the most challenging situation was the tribal where Tori went home, where I showed a clip of the video. When I found out that 2 Black people in a row were voted out, that was something which as a fan, I saw a pattern of happening. And I think I walked in and I saw that Drea might go home in that situation, and that tribal. And I was just I didn't want that pattern to perpetuate, just even for myself. That was something which is so disheartening to watch as a fan, to be a part of it. I didn't want that to happen. And so I knew that even it'd be blowing up my game. I used actually my idol, so that gave me less power in the game. But I knew that morally, from my own personal stance, I had to do what I had to do. And then I just had, honestly, when I came back from tribal, I had so much peace about the situation, because I said, that was always my biggest fear, that I'd see an injustice and I wouldn't do anything. And then I knew, though, that after that tribal, that was my fear, and I faced my fear, and I faced it in a way that I was proud about.
Yeah, and you should be very proud of that. That was quite a moment. I watched that one and it was very powerful. So what's something you didn't realize about the show, whether it was the camp life, the challenges, the tribal, until you became a contestant?
So a lot of times you'll watch the show, especially now, and you'll be like, everyone only talks about strategy. It's only strategy. You actually don't talk a lot. There's very little strategy that you can talk about. You can't fill 2 days or 3 days worth of strategy. You're just saying it again and again and again. So there's still so much what it's called camp life, just chatting around the fire, playing games. Like I think one time I played Limbo with Lindsay. So like there's just still that human interpersonal connection that you still have and experience in that game. And there's still maybe even just as much as it was in the beginning seasons.
A question here about being Canadian. Did you think that having a Canadian background gave you any particular advantage in Survivor versus the American players?
So I actually want to speak to that. And I think yes, because the thing is, Canada is a very, very multicultural country, especially the greater Toronto area. I think Toronto is the most multicultural country, like city in the whole world. So being a part of that multicultural country, and especially someone who's moved a lot, I've interacted with so many different people, all of different walks of life. So when you have those interactions, when you go into a game when you're meeting with 18 random people, there's such a bigger chance that you're able to go and connect with people for many different things. Like, for example, I connected with Tori because Tori and I love Vine. Jonathan and I we both connected in our faith. And I think that, and we also both love Disney. So we connected singing songs back and forth. He sang A Whole New World and he has a great voice. Like you might not see it. I connected with Mike as well, because Mike is just such a cool person. And like we always just joked around because he was the oldest and I was the youngest. So there's so many different ways, even being Canadian and having that experience where it really helps because we have experienced more different people. So we have those more connections that people who might have lived in the same rural area their whole life might not have.
Yeah, that's great. Someone's asking, are you watching this season of Survivor? And if so, who are you rooting for?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I am watching this season. Who was I rooting for? I was rooting for Janine, and sorry, spoilers. I'm so sad because Janine was voted out. A fun fact was Janine was actually our alternate for season 42. So she flew in with us. So a lot of us, we recognized her face. So we're so happy she got a chance to play. Wish she got to play longer, but I was rooting for Janine.
All right. How hard was it to keep it a secret that you had won, especially since the show aired almost a year later?
For me, it actually was not that hard. And the reason why it wasn't hard is because the people around my life, my mom's a very big Survivor fan. My sister was the person who introduced me to Survivor initially. And so I knew that most people only play Survivor once, right? And I knew so that this was like their one chance of watching me play Survivor and enjoying the journey that I had. So knowing that that would be all the much sweeter in the end, so they'd have to watch with the anticipation, with the nervousness, rather than being like, oh, she's safe the whole time, was something that really stopped me from telling anyone.
Oh, whoops, sorry, I just lost the question page here. Okay. Kind of back to the question about 2 questions ago. Have you remained in touch with any of the other contestants after the show ended, or did you all go your separate ways?
Oh yeah, we have a group chat. We're all so close. Like I got to see Tori recently, and then Omar lives 10 minutes away from me. So I see him all the time. Like I actually watched the episode with him yesterday. So we still spend so much time with each other. Like we're still a very, very close cast. Like I talk to them all the time.
That's great. Yeah, that's interesting. With the merge feast, did all of that food and alcohol actually sit well with everyone? Someone's commenting, I've always wondered how your bodies reacted after being on a rice and water diet for so many days.
Oh yeah, it runs through you, right? So the trick is knowing that it runs through you, just enjoy it, but just don't overeat, because then if you overeat and then you just eat yourself sick, then you're just losing in 2 ways, right? But if you eat just to the point, that point when you're not like uncomfortably stuffed, but you're like comfortably stuffed, eat that every single time, you'll just be fine and right as rain.
Oh, that's interesting. Were there any key moments or strategies you were a part of that you thought were significant, but they didn't actually air on the show?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that was not shown was my alliance with Omar. I was very, very close with Omar since day one. We had an alliance. And another thing as well, too, the tribe which I started with, Taku, we had an alliance on day 2, me, Jonathan, Lindsay, Omar. And so a lot of times people might have thought that I was just lucky that I wasn't voted out in the first few votes, but like I had that strategy. And then because I was aligned with Omar, I was getting information as well from other people as well through him. So they didn't show a lot of my strategy, but I'm very at peace with the situation because I know why I won. So regardless of whatever was shown on TV, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's great. What was something when you were on the show that you learned about yourself that you didn't know before you were on the show?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that I learned when I was on the show was that sometimes I still have a habit of self-sabotaging. So there was a point at the end of the game when I made a promise to Mike that I would, if I won the final four, I'd take him to the end. But I knew that wasn't the best for me strategically. But I think I just had such a fear about losing him as a friend that I wasn't even worried about my game. I'm like, at least then he'll win. And then I'd give myself an out if I lost, being like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, rather than going and giving myself the best chance to win and then still losing anyway. So that's something which I had to overcome in that situation. It's something that I still am working on.
I have a couple people asking if you would ever play again in future seasons if the opportunity came up.
I would play again, but it's all about the timing. So, if Jeff called right now, being like, Marianne, we want you for the next season, it's hard to say no, but I'm very right now at peace with where I'm at peace with the game. I'm very fulfilled. So I wouldn't feel as much of an itch to play now, but like maybe 5 seasons, 10 seasons later, if like maybe they call, I'd be willing to play. So like, I'm not saying no forever, but no for now.
Gotcha. Speaking of Jeff, someone asks, does Jeff Probst have favorites during the game? And did you try to use that to your benefit?
Jeff is very, very good at not influencing the game. So if he had favorites, like I couldn't tell you who they were. He treats us all very equally.
Okay, that's great. When people get voted off and join the council, where do they stay?
They stay in Ponderosa. I had the beautiful experience of staying there for one night. So actually, the Ponderosa, where the jury stays, is actually where you stay before, but you have to stay in a tent, so you don't get to stay in the beds. But I hear Ponderosa has massages, pools, wonderful drinks, unlimited food. So it's a pretty swanky place, is what I've heard.
Nice. So they're comfortable once they're voted
They're
off.
very comfortable once they're voted off. Yeah.
Gotcha. Someone is saying, hi, you are my favorite winner on Survivor ever. I noticed that your public speaking skills are amazing. How did you prepare for the final tribal council?
Yeah, so the way that I prepared for final tribal is starting from around the final 8. I was starting to think about, okay, who's in the jury? What parts of the game do I think they'd fully respect? So how can I go and pitch myself to them? And that was something that I thought every single vote out to when the jury was formed. Starting later, I was thinking, okay, so these are the members of the jury. These are who they're probably going to vote for. So for the people who they're voting for, if they're not voting for me, how can I convince them to vote for me? How will my game go and really really call to them? So that was kind of what I was thinking of. And then when the final 4 was voted out, when John was the final member, I think that last night I just sat down and thought about strategy the whole night, being like, what am I going to say? What are the strengths of my game? What are the weaknesses of my game? What are some things that people might not know, which I think that I want them to know?
Just speaking of final tribal council, someone's asking, who would you have chosen to win out of the fellow players had you not won?
So let's say it was Jonathan, Mike, and Romeo. So it's so hard because Jonathan, he was been with me since day one. It's like Mike, I feel a lot of respect for his game as well too. And Romeo and I, we were both on the bottom together and we made it to the top. But I think if you put like a gun to me right now, I'd probably say Mike.
Which of the Survivor challenges are you most proud of having done?
Oh my goodness. The first one where there was a boat and you push the boat, then you have to like pull it through a track and then you have to do a puzzle. That boat was so hard to push. And it was because we found out it was actually made for 6 players, but there were only 5 of us because one of our tribe mates got medevaced. And so I remember literally pushing this boat, being like, I should have worked out like once an hour. It's like, I'm so not ready for Survivor. It's like, is it always going to be this hard? But then knowing that we finished the challenge and we finished it in first place, even when we didn't start the puzzle first, was something that was very proud. I'm like, and I was so proud knowing that my family would be watching me doing a puzzle and succeeding.
Yeah, that's great. How did you deal with stress in school, Survivor, work, etc.? How did you deal with all of that?
So the way that I deal with stress a lot, so sometimes you have stress and you just are able to navigate with stress, but sometimes there's situations when you feel very stressed and overwhelmed. So in those moments when I feel overwhelmed, I actually allow myself to take a step back. So I take a step back, I just do things which I really calm me down. So for me, that's usually playing my Nintendo Switch. And then I'll just go take that time to myself, really self-care. And then either later in the evening or when I feel ready, I'll go back and I'll look at the tasks. I'll be like, what are the assignments which I have to do? Or what are the tasks which I have to do? And then I'll organize it in a tangible way where I'll be able to go and check off goals to make it so to make this big task seem like something small. So I can take it piece by piece.
Yeah, that's great advice too. Did you get to keep the buffs from the show?
You don't get to keep them, but they send them to you after the show's done. So I do have my in-game buffs, but the thing is you drop your buffs and you throw your buff off, right? So you don't know, is it my, like, is this orange buff my buff or is it Omer's buff? Like, you don't really know, but you know it's one of your buffs.
Yeah, exactly. Was there a time when you thought, I've got this, I'm going to win? Was there a time in the show that you kind of hit that point, or was it not till the very end?
I thought that I had a chance of winning as soon as Romeo said, oh yeah, like I'm going to take Marianne to the end. I felt as if I had a chance to win. Like, I feel as if really voting out Omer, it gave me like I saw that path to win.
Okay, we have time for a couple more questions here before we just wrap things up. Someone's asking, if you had to pick another show to go on other than Survivor, which show would you choose and why?
Oh my goodness. Not The Challenge. I'd be laughed off. But if I were to choose a show, probably The Amazing Race. I think it's really fun. It's basically a scavenger hunt with friends. And I'd say I'd take Omer, but he doesn't know how to drive stick or ride a bike, so he'd be pretty useless. So, and he hasn't learned yet. So currently, like, I guess my partner's open.
Okay. A lot of people are asking, what have you been doing post Survivor? You gave mention of your job opportunities that came up with TVO, but what have you been doing since then, and what are your plans?
Yeah. So right now I work with TVO Kids and I work on the new channel called No Brainers. It's on YouTube. It's super cool. Look it up. But another thing which I do as well too is that I really loved being able to just go and empower people, to discuss with people. And like, I've really tried to like start public speaking, getting to go and inspire people, getting to chat with people, getting to hear their stories and them being able to go and hear mine. That's something that I'm very passionate about. So that's what I've been doing right now.
That's great. So actually, I'm going to do two more questions here before we wrap things up. What moment in your Survivor season meant the most to you, and how has it stuck with you after the season?
I think the moment that meant the most to me is honestly Omer willing to go and risk his game to make sure that I was safe. Like, he could have just been like, Marianne, just play your idol and then make it another round. He could have said nothing, but he's like, you know what? I'm going to go. I like you. I want to work with you. So I'm going to go and move forward with you and try to flip the vote just for you. Even when he didn't have his vote, that means so much to me.
Yeah, I bet it meant a lot. And I guess we'll end on this question before we wrap things up. But what you gave us lots of advice this evening, lots of lessons, lots of things to think about. And like I said, you're very inspiring and very passionate. But what is the one piece of advice you'd like viewers or people in general who are learning things in life and figuring things out for themselves? What's the one piece of advice that you would recommend sticking to?
The biggest piece of advice that I recommend sticking to is that your life isn't just one moment. Your life isn't one massive success. It isn't just one goal. It isn't one big failure. Your life are a series of events that go and make you have that journey. So you're in currently a point in that life. Maybe you can see far what your goal is. Maybe you can see close what that goal is, but there's still so much journey to experience where it's like, experience life to the fullest. Your life isn't just one goal. Your life isn't just your career. It isn't just who you marry, if you marry, or who you date. It's all these things culminating, all these experiences. That's what your life is. So experience it fully, like every single point, the highs and the lows.
That's great advice. And again, very transferable to all areas of life, whether it's on Survivor or students at McMaster or people who are in later stages of life. I think it's all transferable. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to our group tonight. It was wonderful getting to meet you and getting to hear about your experience. So thank you so much. And thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in. We will be sending a follow-up email with the recording of this within a week's time. If you'd like to rewatch it or share it with any of Marianne or Survivor friends who may not have been able to join us this evening. Thank you once again for joining us, and we hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.